Today in the podcast, I'm joined by Brandy Hawthorne from the Joyous classroom and the creator of Mighty Math Minds. Brandy is a veteran in education. She's been in this world for over 30 years. She has been a teacher in both public and private schools. She's been an interventionist. She's also been a childcare director. Brandy is currently teaching a third grade gifted and talented class in Texas, and she actually joined us for this interview during her planning period. So in between teaching students, she hopped on. Brandy has a passion for sharing her love of education with both families and educators, and she especially wants families to know they can prepare their child for math success with easy, simple games, all hands-on, all play-based, and things that you already have around your home. You don't have to go out and buy anything fancy. You don't have to have formal lessons, but all of the ideas that Brandy shares in this podcast interview are so accessible and easy for parents to implement, and your child is going to be set up for success in kindergarten and beyond when you do these activities. If you have any questions about this episode, you can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at Littles Love Learning Blog. You can also reach out to Brandy. She has a great Facebook group for Mighty Math Minds families that I will link in the show notes. You can join that group, get lots of ideas, and you can ask Brandy any of your questions in there. Hey, Brandy. Welcome to the Littles Love Learning Podcast.
Hi, Erin. So glad to be here with you today.
Well, this is our third time. The first time we tried to have a podcast, we had a cancellation. And then the second time I had to cancel. And so I am so glad, third time's a charm, we're able to make this work.
It is, life gets in the way, but I'm so glad to be here. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this. I so appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, you and I connected through the Engaging Early Learning Summit, which just happened in September of this year, which was phenomenal. It was a great way for early childhood educators and parents to come together so we can talk about the best ways to prepare our little ones for school. And your topic, math specifically, was super important for me to have a guest on the podcast talk about just because it's not my area of expertise. It's not what I focus on. So I can't wait to dive into that. But before we do, let's go way back and let's talk about your journey and how you even became a teacher in the first place.
Oh my goodness. Growing up, I didn't think about it very much, but much later when people ask me, how did you get into education? I realized that I was surrounded by teachers, grandmothers who were teachers, aunts who were teachers, great aunts, great grandmothers. I had my grandmother's pre-primers from like the early 50s and the 40s.
Wow.
And I read those books. I read all of those books just over and over and over. And I loved the stories. Had them in my room. And of course I wrote Mrs. and I put my maiden name on there. Like I was the teacher and I had a little old fashioned wooden school desk and I just loved school. And, I had younger brothers, so they would always be my audience and my guest in my classroom. So education has just always been a big passion of mine. And, I went to Texas A&M and studied early childhood education, and finally things clicked for me, especially in the area of math. And I will say in the summit, that's one of the things I think people clicked on my presentation, because math is one of those areas that I know for a lot of us like moms that we don't feel very confident in. And so my goal and my mission is to help, others feel confident in the skills that they have, and to know that you don't have to be a mathematician. You just have to be a normal, everyday person who recognizes and sees math around you and takes advantage of that. So,
well, I love that you want to create this positive conversation around math. Like you said, most of us maybe don't have the best memories of learning math in school or math class. I was actually thinking of a memory before our conversation of a junior high math class and an activity we did. She called it drills, and they were oral questions. And you had to go around the classroom and you weren't sure which question you were going to get, but you tried to figure it out because once it came to you, you had to answer right away. And if you missed it, the whole class had to start over. And I will tell you, I'm almost 40 and I still get that feeling in my stomach when I think about those drills, because they were so difficult for me. And it was so embarrassing when you were the one to get it wrong, especially if the class was almost through the whole round. I just think there was such a missed opportunity back then to encourage a love of math, especially for girls. I absolutely disliked it, never wanted to pursue anything with math. And so I just love that that conversation is changing now.
It really is. And I'm not a math person. My husband laughs that I have this little thing I do on the side that's all about math because he's like, okay. And just so your audience knows, I do teach third grade. And this year I have the pleasure of being a GT third grade math teacher. And so my students are super fast with their facts. And sometimes I'm like, wait, hang on, let me check that here on my fingers. Um,
Yes.
but having been a math teacher for so many years, I've learned so many neat things about math. And what I love about it is that there's so many different ways that you can think about numbers and think about math. And, you and I probably learned just the regular algorithm, the
Hmm.
regular way we start in the ones, we add or subtract, and then we carry or we borrow and we go to the tens. But our students today are thinking about numbers in much broader ways. And that's what makes math so exciting. And I love it every day. It's my favorite part is hearing them. And I hate those math memories that some of us have. And I really try hard in my class to make things equitable, to have differentiation, to be aware of, especially when we're playing games, pairing kids up. I don't want to pair them up with that person that's super fast. Um, and I don't want to pair that super fast person up with someone who might need more supports all the time because neither one of them feels challenged or feels good about where they are in math. So that's one of the things we talk about too a lot.
Right, absolutely. I guess I didn't realize you were still in the classroom. So
I
you're
am
still
still in the
teaching.
classroom 30 plus
Wow.
years and still super passionate and learning all the time, always learning something new and trying to improve.
That's amazing. So you're so busy as a mom and a teacher, and you still have taken time to create this beautiful side project. So you actually have Mighty Math Minds, which you are championing. So I'd love for you to talk about that. I know your heart now behind why you want kids to love math. So what do you offer with Mighty Math Minds?
Right now I'm just starting this little extra thing called Mighty Math Minds. I started a couple of years ago. It's always been a dream to present to other teachers and share just the little bits of wisdom. I've had the pleasure of working all across the United States in all different kinds of classrooms and schools, from private schools, Christian schools, nonprofit arena. I was a preschool autism teacher. I was an early childhood interventionist. So I have a lot of wisdom in or a little bit of wisdom in a lot of areas. But I think that's one of the great things about teaching is you don't have to be an expert. You just have to share what's working and those good things. And that's really my passion is just sharing the simple things. I'm not an expert. I'm not a mathematician. I don't have my, master's or my anything else, my doctorate and anything, but I have years of experience of seeing how kids learn. And if I can share that with other teachers or with parents, because that's also a passion is sharing, with parents, like, hey, this doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to be drill and kill like your teacher was
Hmm.
doing and like my teachers did. It can be fun. And I want kids to I want my students to see the fun in learning, and I want parents and other educators to see that it doesn't have to be drill and kill every day. It can be fun and still be challenging. I just started this little thing, mostly with that summit. I was thinking, like, my background's early childhood. I really love that kiddos, when they're so young, have the opportunity to learn so many things that they're going to carry over with them when they get to school that are going to help them be more successful. And I didn't know this fact. I've been a reading teacher, math teacher, everything. But most people think of reading as the definitive thing that's going to help a child be successful when they hit school. But research actually says that math is the thing that really drives student success, even more so than early reading skills. So if a student can come into school with some math background knowledge, and I don't mean adding and subtracting necessarily, but having a sense of numbers and an understanding of concepts like big, bigger, and biggest, or just some very simple things, then they're going to soar when they get to school. And they're going to be those kids who are very confident and who see the relationships between numbers. So that's why I started this little extra side project called Mighty Math Minds. And right now it's just a Facebook group for parents and other teachers where I share ideas and I do presentations at different conferences and things and summits and podcasts. And hoping to continue to grow that into a little bit more and where I can offer things for families if they need more knowledge and wisdom. But I'm getting there. I'm growing. So
Well, we're so glad that you are because I mean, I am in the reading space. So, of course, I'm biased towards reading. And I know so many wonderful educators who are out there talking about early reading, but I really love that you have the focus on early math. And I can see how important that is, not for a child to enter kindergarten knowing, like you said, adding and subtracting. That's not what this is about. It's about having that deeper knowledge and that number sense
mhm.
and just a number sense in the sense that if you're asking a child about an adding question, and one of the answers is a number that's bigger and one of them is smaller, we want them to already intuitively know, well, it can't be the smaller answer because I know I'm getting bigger. It has to be bigger. So just, I know I see that sometimes with students where they're like, oh, yeah, that answer's right. And you're thinking, but common sense wise, it couldn't be right. So let's not look at necessarily all of those little things with math, but let's just talk about the bigger picture and have more of an intuitive role of number sense and going deeper instead of trying to rush them along.
I love that. And it really is that intuition about numbers. And that's what number sense is. When people talk about number sense, it is that intuitive knowledge of how things are related to each other, knowing that the number three is one and one and one. My students right now are studying unit fractions. Unit fractions are one, one, and one. And then we're learning how to find the sum of those. And so that would be three of, 3/6 or 3/4 or whatever. But that all starts when they're young, even as when they're toddlers or babies, even before that, when they're in the high chair and that baby realizes they've eaten all of their little snack in front of them and they ask for more and the mom gives them one more and one's not enough. They know I don't have any. They already know I have zero. They understand that zero and they understand that one and they understand more than one. They may not be able to express the numeral, but they know that they've got zero or they've got one or they've got more than one. And so that's fascinating to me that our brains can understand things like that at such young ages. And yes, then it relates to in the classroom, that logical thinking and reasoning when we're looking for answers like, this can't be the answer. We can eliminate that because when I'm adding, I'm looking for a larger number. So I love that.
Right. And just to piggyback off your example, if you have a little one and you have a sibling for that little one, they learn about if it's the same or if it's not the same very quickly. Because if their big brother, big sister gets two cookies and they only get one cookie, they will absolutely notice. It's so interesting how kids are constantly comparing. I talk about this with some of my friends. All of them say their kids do the same thing. They're noticing how many does he get? How many did I get? Is it the same? Is it different? So they're already getting that number sense just in life.
Absolutely. And that's, when we talk to our children about those things, that can be considered a number talk. That's something that people might hear, a number talk. And it sounds intimidating. Oh, a number talk. I can't do a number talk. But that's exactly what a number talk is, talking to your kids. Well, why are you upset that your sister has more or less? It's looking at those little things all around us all the time and just taking those little moments and turning them into a conversation that, and you were talking about comparing. Well, comparing numbers is something they do when they get in school. And so if they are noticing those things as toddlers and you're bringing that to their attention, they're even more ready for what they're going to do when they get to school.
Yes, so, so true. Well, let's go back to those number talks because I know that is something that you're passionate about, just really inspiring parents to talk about math all day long. And I do the same thing with reading. It doesn't have to be a formal lesson. You don't have to be a homeschool parent. You can be talking about reading and helping your child hear the sounds of our language all day long. So I'm assuming that number talks have a very similar vibe.
Absolutely. And when you have a very young child and you're changing their clothes. We're always like touching their fingers and counting their fingers and their toes.
Yes.
That could be a number talk for a baby. And then they go up. And so when then you have that toddler in the high chair and you're giving them the snack, you say, do you want one more? Do you want more than one? That can be considered a number talk. I try to make parents aware of those everyday routines that they're doing and help them see the value in talking about what they're doing. And I love that you said it does not have to be a formal math lesson. It's just a very informal time where we're observing and we're taking advantage of those moments. And so even when they're taking their shoes off, and a lot of parents and a lot of families, they take their shoes off at the door. Everyone's shoes are kind of lined up. That's a great time to have a number talk. Oh, look at your shoes, but look at daddy's shoes. His shoes are so much bigger. And then maybe line up how many little shoes fit one of daddy's big shoes. When you're in the bathtub, that is such a great chance to play and talk about math. When you're building things, talking about which one is bigger and how many more blocks do you need so it'll be as tall as mommy's, or those are all just great opportunities for a very small number talk, even when they're reading a book. And I love there's so many books that have animals or trucks or whatever it is, and you're talking, let's count how many ducks did we see? Let's count them. Those are just great opportunities to bring a little bit of math into your day, like you said, without a formal lesson of any kind. You're just taking advantage of those opportunities that are already there in your day.
Yep, just everyday moments. I love that. And I know you're also passionate about play, teaching math through play. So these moments, these everyday moments, we can make them playful. But do you have any examples if maybe a parent wanted to set up more of a play-based math activity? Maybe they have some time after school, after their child gets home from preschool, and they want to set up some sort of fun activity. Anything they could do?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, so many ideas. There are just so many great things you can do. So when you're in the kitchen, I know a lot of times, we're trying to cook dinner, but we've got littles that we need to entertain and keep busy. And so instead of, putting screens in front of them, we can have that cabinet or that drawer in the kitchen that's got all kinds of containers. We always have those leftover butter containers and yogurt containers, and all those different sizes are great. And you could suggest getting just a big bin and filling it with rice or dried beans or anything like that. And then they can practice scooping all the different sizes, different spoons, funnels, put a funnel in there. That sounds very simple and it doesn't sound like it's math, but it is helping them understand volume and capacity and how many little scoops make one big scoop. And so you can be cooking, but also be kind of guiding your kiddo to make some of those discoveries or asking them some guiding questions as they're playing. That's a really great way to incorporate math. Again, the bathtub is great, and you can
Yes.
put Legos in the bathtub or little plastic blocks or foam pieces in the bathtub. Um, Play-Doh is good. Most parents have some kind of Play-Doh. And so if you have Play-Doh and then you have a card, and you can just make paper cards, or you have a domino or dice or something, and it has the four dots, they can make the four dots just pushing their finger into the Play-Doh to show the four dots that match the four dots on the card. Or you can get a bingo dotter from the dollar store, the little paint markers, and they can dot four dots on there to match. And then they can practice, you can outline the number and they can trace over it with that dotter. Those are great, simple math activities that I think sometimes we don't think of as math activities. Stringing beads on a string, if you tie a knot on your little yarn, or dried noodles. Hey, dried noodles don't cost us anything. Almost
Yes.
all parents have those at home. And tie a little knot, put a piece of tape on one end, and then they can, turn a card over with a number, or you can write a number and they can turn it over and then put that many pieces of dried noodles or Cheerios or Fruit Loops, whatever they have. There's just so many different things you can do like that. And I do have a document that I can share with you if you want to put a link to it for your
That'd be
listeners,
great.
that has indoor activities, outdoor activities, bathtub activities, kitchen activities that are super simple and can be adapted for almost any age under the age of 6.
That's amazing. And almost all of your examples were also examples of developing fine motor skills too. And we know how important that is, especially before our kids head to kindergarten. Before they start that formal handwriting instruction, we need them to build up the muscles in those hands. So everything you just said is going to be helping us do that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My students in here, I teach math and I try to do something interactive and kinesthetic every day with my kiddos because I have a lot of boys and girls who are active. They need that activity. And we only have a 15-minute recess time, which is not enough. But so I have to keep them active in the classroom and engaged and excited about coming to math. And so I had a sheet of paper. This is another great activity. I have a big sheet of an easel paper, and we just put down products for different math problems. But if you're at home, you could just put simple numbers on a piece of paper, 1, 5, 3, and then they can take Cheerios and put that many Cheerios on there, or they can stamp it with a little stamp or different things. And so we did products. So I'm looking at it right now. It's got 0, 35, 81, 48, 20, 24. And then I have dominoes, and they have to turn one domino over and they race against each other to find the product. They multiply the two numbers on their domino, find the product, put it down there. They absolutely loved it. And at home, again, you can do that with basic numbers. They turn a card over, and like I said, they can either put that number of Cheerios or put the card on top of it. And it's just so fun and engaging. You can go out back in the backyard and get paper plates and just put a number on the paper plate, and they can you can put them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if you're working on skip counting for an older kid, maybe they're working on counting by twos or something like that. Get a little bean bag or a Ziploc bag that you put something in that they can toss onto the plates and go in order, or they can add things together and toss it, make it very active and fun.
Yes, get them up and moving. All of those ideas are so much fun. Your students must love coming to your class because that's way different than math when I was a kid, for sure.
It really is, and it's way different than math when I was a kid. But I love that, and I just love the interaction between them. And I like anything where they're hearing things, seeing things, and doing something with it. If I can combine multiple modalities of the brain and of their body, then I just feel like that's going to imprint that information so much better when we're doing all those different things.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I would say for our listeners, because most of them are preschool and kindergarten parents and teachers, really introducing numbers, the numerals, is important too, because just like with letters, if we flip a number upside down or backwards, it's going to change that number. Same with letters like B and D and P and Q. Whereas if you flip a statue of a dog upside down, it's still a dog. And so I know that number reversals, especially, are very common. It's not
Mhm.
anything to be alarmed about, but it is something that we want to work on with our little ones. So when you were saying about when you're cooking in the kitchen, having them do something, make sure you have those magnetic numbers on your refrigerator so
Absolutely.
they can move them around and they can see.
And I love those are things you can buy at the dollar store, or if you're at Target, they're in the dollar bin a ton. All the time I go into Target and I see magnetic letters and numbers and other shapes. And so even if they're not the numeral, you could have, whatever it is, and you could just call out a number and say, okay, find 5 and make a group of 5. What's one less, one more? All of those little things are preparing the kiddo. Another great thing in the kitchen when you're in there is just get a little baking sheet and either put some flour in it or shaving cream if you feel,
Mhm.
um, you know, crazy enough to do shaving cream, and they can practice, tracing and writing their numbers in that. You can even do just a piece of construction paper, colored construction paper underneath, so that when they make the number in the flour, they see the color underneath. That's a lot of fun and really simple and easy for someone to do.
And such a great idea. I do have a video on my YouTube channel with number formation because I notice we work a lot with handwriting formation with our little ones, but a lot of time that number formation can be really hard for them too. And if they're not explicitly taught, how do I form these numbers? And all of a sudden you see random lines and circles and they're trying to figure it out. So I love practicing in that multisensory way with the flour or the dried rice or
Mhm.
in shaving cream, which I do like to use and it smells good. That's going to
It's
be so
great
much
in
more
the
fun.
summertime, take
Yes.
that as an outside activity, and then everybody gets to play in the shaving cream and spray off with the water hose afterwards. So,
Yes. And just like you said, that in-depth knowledge of math is so crucial. That's what we're trying. We're not pushing our preschoolers to
mhm.
be adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. That's not what we're asking for parents to do. We just want them to have that deeper sense, that number sense.
It really is. I saw this great thing, and it's can an elephant fit in a bathtub? And it's little conversations like that when you're outside or you're in your own bathtub, or in the summertime you're outside in that little, blow up swimming pool that we all had for our toddlers. Um, Asking, could an elephant fit in here? Or what could fit? How deep is it? How wide is it? And just silly conversations too can be fun. Um, you made me also think, when we're outside, kids love collecting things. They love picking up
Oh,
rocks
yes.
and leaves and sticks. Well, bring those inside and, have them sort their collection, um, and do things with it and talk about, well, why did you make this group? And what did you do? How could we do this differently? So if it's leaves, you could sort them by color or by shape or by size. If it's sticks, you can, oh, this one's taller or longer or thinner or wider. Those are all words that are encouraging them when they get to school. You're building their vocabulary, which is great for reading, but you're also building, just that knowledge, that breadth of knowledge. So when they get to school, they're ready for those conversations and they know how to participate in those.
Yes. And as parents, it's important for us to understand that math is not taught the way it was when we were kids. There's actually a very funny joke. Do you know the comedian Nate Bargatze? Have you
Yes,
heard
I
of him?
love
Okay.
him.
I love him. And he has a funny joke about math, saying he thinks that the purpose of Common Core math is to use as many sheets of paper for one problem as possible. And he said when his daughter was doing a math problem, he said, "Oh, I found old math right in the middle of this whole long problem." He said, "Why don't you just do that to begin with? Why are we doing all these other steps?" Which is so funny, such a funny joke. A lot of us parents think that, wait, we were taught this one way. Why are our kids being taught a different way? But what I always say to parents when they say that to me is, well, did you like math growing up? Do you feel like you're good at math? And 99% will say no. So
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion, well, it didn't really work that great for our generation. So we're trying something new, something different. I know Common Core math is not perfect, but I do like the attention to understanding what the math is actually showing or understanding at a deeper level and not just that rote memorization that a lot of us did.
That's true. Not necessarily did you like math or not, but I love that question. Do you feel very confident? Do you feel like you're good in math? Like, we could all do that standard algorithm where we're adding in a column and we're carrying or borrowing. Yes, we can do it, but I don't always feel confident in that.
Right.
And I go back and I, recount and other um, when I met my husband, he could add, I could say, sweetheart, what's 137 and 256? And he would give me this number right away. And I was like, how did you do that? But he's rounding. He'd always say, well, it's about this. And I'm like, how did you do that? Well, this number is on. And that's what our kids are doing
Right.
naturally, who have exposure to numbers and have number sense. They're thinking about numbers in a new and a different way that may seem impractical to us, but it allows them to be so much more efficient, and faster with coming up with answers than we were, with mentally. We had to have paper and pencil to do it, and they're
Yes.
able to do it mentally, which is what's amazing. So,
I remember when I was going through my teacher prep program, my bachelor's, when I had to take a math class, had to teach elementary math, that's the first time I ever learned those different strategies. Instead of having to get out a paper and pencil and add up the ones column and the tens
mhm.
column, where you're saying, okay, well, 42 is close to 40 and 36 is close to 40. And then you do this mental math in your head and you get the answer faster. No one had ever taught me that. And I was just blown away. And now it's nice that that can be an option for our kids. Not all kids will like that way, but we're giving them different options so that they can figure out what works best for them.
And that's what I love. And so if you're going back to a parent who's at home, just, like even with that paint daughter, making 5 dots. And then, oh, let's make 5 more. And now let's count how many dots there are in all. So they're learning groups of, which is an early multiplication skill. or repeated addition skill or skip counting skill. So I love that math is so scaffolded and it builds on all the little things that we do that we might think are unimportant, but they're so important for later on. And some kids innately pick up on those things and they recognize, oh, well, I have two groups of five. Oh, that's just like I have five fingers here and five fingers here. Oh, that's like two groups of five. That's 10. I have, third graders. I've had fifth graders before who didn't understand that this is two groups of five and it makes a group of 10 and half of that is five. Um, and so I have literally had kids and when I ask what's half of 10, they're like, I don't know. Well, let's think about what do we have on our fingers. So when we're counting those fingers and toes and doing all those fun little things, we are building their skills for later on. And they are going to make those connections the more we do those kinds of activities. So yes, I love that you keep saying we're not focusing so much on adding, subtracting, those kinds of things. It's just that knowledge of numbers and knowing that the number five is two plus three more. It's one and four more. It's five and zero. It's one less than six. It's half of 10. Those are all things that the more we're playing with numbers, and honestly, I have this conversation with educators all the time. We're seeing fewer and fewer kids come to school with good number sense. They cannot add and subtract to 10 or even to 20 with automaticity, that where we know 6 and 4 is 10. And honestly, I always say, I think it's because we're not playing games like we used to. Kids are
Right.
not playing with cards. They're not playing dice. They're not playing with dominoes. They're not doing board games, where we took that little piece and we went three more or we went back to, and we all knew how far we were going on that board and how much further we had to go to get to the ending or back to oh no, I've got to go back to the beginning. So I want to encourage parents, play those games, play with cards, play with dice, play with dominoes. You don't have to go out and do anything fancy, make groups of, make tally marks, all the fun little things that kids just want to do anyway, naturally. They love lining things up. They love comparing things. They love making collections and groups of things. And so let them do that. Let them take all their toy cars and make a group of five and a group of two. And oh, you've got five red ones and two blue ones. Gosh, how many more do you have that are red than you have that are blue? And that is beginning to build those skills.
Yes, and they're going to be so prepared for kindergarten and first grade when you're doing that. Your child's teacher, if they go to school, is going to thank you
Yes,
having that background.
absolutely.
And you didn't have to
Absolutely.
buy anything to do it. You don't have to buy anything separate. It is all just within your day to day.
It is. And that's what I love. Open up that cabinet, open up your pantry, take out those things. Your toys, we have toys. Legos are such a great early learning device too. And cards and dice and dominoes and get those dried beans out and those dried noodles and all that good stuff. And just let kids play. And as they're playing, you can have these conversations. So,
And you're cultivating that attitude of a love toward math and a love toward learning. And I think that's more important than the actual skill, especially with our little preschoolers and kindergartners. If we can encourage them to love it, that makes a
mhm.
huge, huge difference.
Absolutely. And that's what I always say, that I really, my job, the academics will come, but I want my students to love learning, to feel challenged, to be able to be creative with it, to feel safe. And so that's the other thing, let them make mistakes. I tell my
Yeah.
kids every day, it is okay to make mistakes when we're learning, when we're in the learning process. That is how we grow. And so, as parents, don't be so didactic and stuck on that they have to get it right, because play and learning and creativity and mistakes, they all go together. Um, if people hadn't have made mistakes that they made, we wouldn't have the things that we have. And Thomas Edison, my kids love the example of Thomas Edison, that he tried to make that filament for the light bulb over 1,000 times before he got it right. And most of us as humans would give up after about the third, fourth, or fifth time. We'd be like, I quit. This is not working. So mistakes are definitely how we learn, but kids need to feel secure and know that it's okay to make mistakes and to explore and to try this. And well, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? When we're looking at that, why didn't it work? We're actually learning to process and think logically and problem solve. Oh, where did I go wrong? What do I need to do differently this time so that it doesn't turn out like that again? Um, and I start my year out where we make paper towers. And it's a great thing because it teaches my students that one, it's okay to make mistakes. This is a safe place to make mistakes. They get to be creative. They get to work together and communicate. And they learn in the process of making those paper towers that it's not necessarily about how tall the tower is, but it's really about that base. How strong of a base do you have? And so that's a great way to think of everything that parents are doing. They're building that base so that we can then gradually add to that tower. But they need that strong base to get started because without that, the tower's not gonna, it's gonna topple over and we're never gonna get anywhere.
That's right. What a beautiful metaphor. And thank you for creating that safe space for your students and encouraging other educators and parents to create that safe space. Because thinking back to my example from the beginning of our interview, I did not feel safe in my math class. Absolutely felt very unsafe in that class. And to this day, still remember it. So thank you for not giving your students that experience and making them feel safe. And I'm totally with you. That growth mindset, making mistakes is how we learn. If I had had that modeled for me, maybe I would have felt differently, but making mistakes to me was horrible. I couldn't make a
Right.
mistake.
Yeah, I felt the same way in math and was terrified. And like you, I love that where you're looking ahead to see, oh,
Yes.
which question am I going to have? And do I know the answer? And is it going to be right? Or is everybody going to look at me and I'm going to ruin the whole thing? So, yeah, we want kids to feel confident. We want them to be able to explore. It's really about exploring and being inquisitive and being creative and wanting to continually learn and add to their knowledge base.
Well, I can see why you named your business the Joyous Classroom because you are so filled with joy. I have just had the best time talking to you. I could talk to you for hours and hours. All of your ideas and your experience and the way you're using your time to help other families and other educators. Just thank you so much for everything that you're
Oh.
doing.
Thank you, Erin. And yes, I love being an educator and I'm super passionate about it and love sharing. So thank you again, really from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity to be here with you today and to share just a little bit of, knowledge and wisdom from all the years I've been around kiddos. Really, I learn from them every single day. They teach me something new that I have never known or thought of. And that's what fills my cup. So,
I love that. Well, let me ask you one more question and then
sure.
we'll wrap up. Since this is the Littles Love Learning podcast, what do you love most about working with littles?
Oh my goodness. It's that inquisitiveness that they have that they're always seeking something. Even babies, when they're putting things in their mouth, they're seeking knowledge. What is this? What does it feel like? Um, Humans are inquisitive creatures and littles just watching them play and talking to them, we can learn so much from their perspective. And so that's what, like I said, fills my bucket and brings me so much joy is just watching them explore the world around them and having a part to facilitate that knowledge and that growth.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky to get to work with these littles. I agree.
Very much
Well,
so.
Brandy, I'm sure everyone's going to want to connect with you once they listen to this episode. So, where is the best place for them to find you online?
The best place to find me if they're interested in math is go on Facebook and just Google Mighty Math Minds. And I will send you a link for that maybe you can put here that
Yes.
people can just click on as well. Um, I also have videos in there. There's math examples of math games and articles. And again, I will make sure I get the link to you and in the Facebook page, the link to all the little activities you can do that are part of your everyday routine. That's the best place to find me. And if they're interested in me, they can just reach out to me there and I'll be happy to give them any information that I can.
Well, perfect. I will link that below. I'm going to jump into that group as well because I love getting these ideas. So many are applicable. You could use them for math, for fine motor development, and I'm sure they could be modified for literacy. So I'm sure I'm going to get lots
Absolutely.
of ideas in there too. Well, thank you
Absolutely.
again, Brandy. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Erin. Have a great day. So great to see you.